Okay, so I wanted to make a video about what I learnt in 2020. Now, 2020, I know for a lot of people was a bad year, especially when I'm talking to people from America, North America, Western Europe, countries that have had a bad experience with the pandemic. From my perspective, I spent the whole of 2020 in Chiang Mai in Thailand. Just to give you a bit of background, Thailand had a very strict lockdown started in March, although the Thai people were voluntarily isolating and taking precautions even before the government stepped in. And they lifted the restrictions throughout the May, June and July period, as far as I remember. And by that point, there really hasn't been any problem with coronavirus, although there is a little bit of an outbreak at the moment. However, the economy has taken a massive hit. It's very much dependent on tourism. Not only that, there's a lot of exports that Thailand makes that was badly hit. It's demographically different. People have moved out of the cities back to their home villages on a massive scale. I mean, there's no tourists, so the whole place looks and feels very different, but from my perspective, it's been no problem at all, because once the lockdown was starting to be lifted, I could pretty much do what I wanted. And certainly since July, I've had a normal life and a very good life, because I can see my friends, I can go out and play guitar, I can take exercise in gyms, and I can go and travel and pretty much do what I want. So the first thing I've learned from 2020 is how unbelievably lucky I am. Where you were born, the time you were born, the country you were born, and your general environment really affects your life. And what I mean is that I was born in a relatively prosperous area in Western Europe. I had a good education. My father's property that he bought, I think it must have been in the early 50s, the value that has accrued over his life, and then that benefited me as well. Also, a purchase that I was able to make when I was younger in the southeast of England, which was just about possible, has done very well for me. Added to that, I also got further education before they started making you take a loan out to do it. I got that for free from the government. And then starting a business in 2005, when the internet was much more in its infancy, and that made it easier for me to rank on Google, to start YouTube and get views. And all of these things would be impossible for somebody who was born in my situation maybe 10 or 20 years ago. It's a totally different economic picture. So I'm going to carry on and tell you some things that I've learned from 2020. I think I've got to say that things that people tell you, that the moral majority say, an unquestioning belief within society that everyone seems to think, might not always be true. And I think this is the case with living on your own. I've been living on my own recently through lockdown and after and before, and everyone would say that if you don't have a wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, then and you're on your own, then you're going to be lonely and unhappy. I never believed that was true, and 2020 has again confirmed this for me. There were times during lockdown where it was difficult, and I don't like Zoom chat. I don't talk on Zoom. It's not the same. And however, there was always a way of getting around it. I was always able to meet people. It might have been quite lonely at times, but then there was always light at the end of the tunnel. It wasn't going to last forever. I'm grateful for that experience in a way, and I know a lot of people found it difficult, but was in a lucky situation anyway. That's why I found it easy. And it's only easy now I look at it in retrospect. I'm sure there were moments where I was banging my head against the wall, and I've just put them to the back of my mind now. And maybe we'll go back into another lockdown, you don't know, and I'll have to eat my words. I have learned in 2020 that really it's okay to be on your own. Don't worry about it. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. I'm quite happy with it. Similarly, another thing that you just pick up from the moral majority, maybe Western culture I'm talking about, maybe unspoken norms. Everyone sort of thinks that it's, you have to have burning desire to do a job and have meaning in your life and want to make the world better 110% of the time. I have also thought that's true in the past. I still do to a certain extent, but 2020 has shown me that it's okay to have a little bit of space in your life, a little bit of vacancy where you don't know what you're doing. A bit of free time, the money's coming in, the business is okay, it's not doing great, but I just need a bit of time to step back and see what I want to do in the future now. I think that would be a good thing as well. It's okay to have nothing to do sometimes. We don't always have to spend every minute of our lives occupied. Okay, so there are some not so obvious things that I learned in 2020, but I just want to rattle off some really obvious beliefs that have been reinforced. And these are things that I've been doing for years. Every morning I try and meditate for 30 minutes. It's something I haven't talked about, and I'll talk about it some other time. But about 2 years ago, I had some family difficulties. We had some disputes, and it was a little bit emotionally challenging at one stage. And I just said to myself about a few months later, right, I'm going to meditate 30 minutes every day now, not 20 or 10 as I'd been doing previous to that. And I think that's really helped. If I don't do 30 minutes, sometimes I do 5 and it just doesn't work, and I don't beat myself up about it. Sometimes I meditate and I've spent the whole 30 minutes thinking about a song that's in my head. And that's not meditation, but I don't beat myself up about it. And then sometimes I'll do 30 minutes and it'll be a good deep level of concentration on my breath. And I think it's those times, those experiences that help you throughout the rest of your life. So 2020 has reinforced the belief that meditation is important in my life. So the other thing's very obvious again, exercise. And it was difficult during lockdown to exercise. The gyms were closed. Outside it was 40 degrees. You didn't really want to go running around in that. And so I put a bit of weight on. I wasn't so healthy during lockdown. And after lockdown, I went back in the gym. And I almost got back to where I was in terms of health and exercise routines. Continuing my exercise routine, even stepping it up a bit, is probably going to be a good thing, and that's something I was reinforced in 2020. You're not an island, you've got to have your friends, and I found friends and making new friends actually in 2020 very important. Very grateful for my friends here. It's just so good to be able to talk things through sometimes, or just say hello, just see a familiar face. We've probably had an experience together that we won't forget in a while, and we'll be talking about for a few years to come. Another reason that you're not an island, and this is a reason not for altruism. In order to help yourself, you should help other people. Helping other people makes you feel better about yourself. I found that helpful this year as well, and hopefully I'll be able to continue that into the future as well. All right, well, this is a difficult one. Don't drink and don't take drugs. Well, during lockdown, I think my alcohol intake increased. That might not have increased so much. Maybe I indulged in a few recreational substances that may or may not be legal in certain countries. And it was important to knock that on the head at the end of lockdown, which I did or did not do successfully at times. You have to moderate your behaviour and your intake of certain mind-controlling substances that might make you feel better in the moment, but won't make you feel better in the long term. Finally, I'd like to end with gratitude. I've read in a lot of self-help books that gratitude is important. At the end of my 30-minute meditation session, or however long it lasts, I do my affirmations, and I think what I was grateful for in the last 24 hours. Generally throughout the day, I just think, oh, isn't it nice? I live in this flat apartment here in Chiang Mai. Isn't it a nice view out of the window? You know, isn't this food nice? Blah, blah, blah. And I try not to forget to do that every day during my meditation session as well as throughout the day. And I think that's helped me as well. So there are a few things, personal development type things that I learnt or relearnt in 2020. Hope that helps you. Please like the video or subscribe to the channel, blah, blah, blah. My name's Rob Coven. I'll see you again.